Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to TOC Europe. It's been way too long. Such a pleasure to be back here hosting you all at our flagship event here in Rotterdam, and hard to believe that our last event was 3 years ago, back in 2019, and hasn't time flown. But now we're getting back to business, and we have a wonderful event lined up for you this week. Truly magnificent event to look forward to. I'd like to thank the exhibitors and sponsors for putting on such a fantastic showcase of the latest cutting-edge port and supply chain solutions. Thanks, guys. It's a really great show out there. Encouragingly, we've received the most pre-registered attendees of all time. Record numbers, so I'm hoping for a good event here this week, and hope you'll all get the value you expect from this occasion. Special thanks to our nearly 100 speakers who have kindly agreed to share with us their insights and knowledge. We've got an exceptional lineup this year, so please have a look at the agendas, and of course we thank the Port of Rotterdam for their continuing belief and support in the brand. It's a pleasure to work with the port, and we're kindly joined by Matthijs van Doorn here on stage today, so many thanks in advance. We're also trialling our first hybrid session, ladies and gentlemen, so if the tech is holding up, I'm hoping we can hear from Mr. Duca. Can you hear us, Alec?
Yes. Hi, Paul.
Excellent.
Hi, everyone.
I'm so pleased that the technology works. Welcome, Alex, and thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know that you're on some important business with Maersk at the moment, so much appreciated, and we're all looking forward to hearing your presentation in a moment. Just a quick thank you and well done to my colleague Matteo Weigold for putting the programs together. Well done, sir. So we have two conference theatres, one here, of course, and one in the far corner. The days are themed in terms of content. So today we're largely looking at market intelligence, tomorrow sustainability, and Thursday we're covering digital transformation. So make sure, if you can, to download the agendas. You can do that by accessing the QR code, which is by the registration area, and all of a sudden the agenda will pop up on your phone. Please do take a look at our Safety Village, a new initiative in partnership with TOC, ICHCA and TT Club on stand B28. You'll have the chance to have your say regarding the safety of terminal workers and also learn about new safety best practices across the industry. Definitely worth a look, something we're going to be developing much more over the coming years. A few housekeeping remarks before we begin. Please do put your mobile phone on silent or vibrate. At this point, normally someone's phone rings, but no, good. In the event of an emergency, calmly make your way to the fire exits. They're very obvious, green signs all around the hall. And what you're going to do is move yourself over to the car park at the front and gather there, and we'll make sure you're all safe. The TOC stand is located over on the far wall, roughly halfway down. Please do come over and see us to talk about our exciting plans for the rest of the year, including Americas, Asia, a new event in Africa, and of course to discuss 2023, which will be here in Rotterdam, but over in the different halls 2, 3, 4, and 5. Please do come and say hi. And catering outlets are one in the foyer and one halfway down the hall near the TOC stand. That's pretty much everything you need to know, I feel, in the housekeeping perspective. And now to the main event. Usually I'd read out a short bio for the moderator, but I feel this gentleman requires no introduction. Steve Cameron, a long-term friend of the event and of mine personally, will be moderating this keynote session. Steve is the director of Independent Port Consultants, and he will introduce the speakers and host the Q&A. So I'm going to hand over to him now so we can begin. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Paul. It's a real pleasure to be here, and in a slight break of tradition, because we've all been away for a long time. do make the most of the opportunity to get to know each other and say hi, make some relationships. Good morning, Martin. Good morning. Nice to see you. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah. Morning, Eleanor. Good morning. So, we're here to connect, build relationships, listen to the speakers. If you ever wanted to know what the definition of free consultancy is, come to TOC, because you're going to get a lot of that over the next couple of days. We're delighted for the support we're getting from the Port of Rotterdam, and in particular to our two speakers this morning, to Matthijs van Doorn, who's the Vice President Commercial Port of Rotterdam, and to Alexandru Duca, Director of Automation Engineering at AP Muller. And Andrew, can you hear us this morning?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good, you're looking good and coming through loud and clear. So TOC Events has always provided the market with the leading platform for industry stakeholders to learn, debate, and to network. We've been prepared to share thought leadership, latest technology, and to debate the leading issues of the day, so that we go home better informed, better connected, and long may this continue. Despite the disruptions last year, TOC managed to hold a more intimate event here in October to keep us connected, which provided us with the opportunity to update ourselves and build important relationships. During the sessions, the consistent feedback was the lack of connectivity, shared data, and visibility in the hinterland supply chain. Since then, we learned that Maersk has developed a supply chain resilience model, SCRM. If there was an A in there, we could call it SCRAM, to help customers reduce supply chain risks and mitigate disruptive impacts. And our first keynote speaker, Matthijs, will address some of these issues. Alongside the supply chain challenges, the industry remains highly focused on environmental issues, and we'll come to those tomorrow morning. And as we transform, attracting and retaining and training the right talent will be pivotal, and an increasingly difficult challenge as our industry competes in the same talent pool as other industries. Have we defined the skills required for ports and terminals of tomorrow? And are we allowing the millennials and Generation Z the opportunities to have their say today and to bring their priorities to the table, as they are our future, and they are our future now? And what about that 50% of the talent market we still have not fully addressed, providing opportunities for women to be both successful global executives and allow them the time to raise their families? Doing this will enable us to not only attract them, but to retain the ones that we have. Talent migration is another issue. How do we overcome the hurdles and misperceptions so that we can truly recruit the best from around the world? Rotterdam continues to lead the way in terms of port development and operations. It has shown a robust response to the pandemic, as observed after a second glass of wine with my colleague Eleanor Hadland of Drury's last night. The Port of Rotterdam plays a major role in bringing the industry towards establishing a more transparent and resilient logistics network. And Matthijs van Doorn will open TOC and share his thoughts on new technologies and initiatives and opportunities that can build the supply chain for tomorrow. By the way, please make sure that you've got your phones on silent. The tariff, if it does go off, is a martini, so I'm kind of hoping somebody's will go off. And you won't be able to go for coffee till we've had at least 3 interesting questions, so I hope you've got that. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Matthijs.
Thanks, Steve. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matthijs van Doorn. Another warm welcome to you all here in Rotterdam. It's a pleasure to see so many people again in real life. And I'll keep on saying that for the coming year, I think, at every conference that I am allowed to speak. It's an honor for me to open this conference today. And I would like to take the opportunity to talk you through our ambition of becoming a smart, a connected and sustainable port. So that covers very much the content of the coming days. I think we have an interesting lineup of speakers, and I'll try to get you first through, a bit of the picture that we're facing out there. Container industry is going through, a very turbulent period of time. I think all of you will recognize the disruptions displayed at the sheet here. And we have to act upon that. And it's a bit awkward to talk about logistical disruptions, whereas we have a war going on our continent at this moment, which is a huge geopolitical and economical tragedy, causing loss of lives. And we can only hope that that will end soon. But still have to get back to today's reality. And apart from the disruptions out there, we've also seen some structural changes in the market over the last couple of years. The vessel capacity increased rapidly, demanding a lot from the logistics system in our port. Drop density increased, and as you see at the screen here, that demands something of the hinterland, because goods that come in have to go somewhere. And I would like to remind you that in our port, it's not one vessel a day coming in with these volumes. It can be 5 or 6 at a day. So multiply the numbers, and you'll see the challenge that we have at hand every day. Of course, we anticipate on that, and we need more infrastructure, and I'm very happy that in our port we still have room to expand. So we'll add some capacity to the Northwest European range in the coming years. And obviously, we have discussions with the companies deploying these terminals about the impact further down the supply chain. With the increase of peaks, we also see a couple of other circumstances coming in. Unreliability at seaside. It's at I think at the lowest end in a couple of years, causing uncertainty in the system. But we've also seen a purchasing peak. Purchasers buying goods to secure their supply, even for the Christmas sale. That means that when a system is congested, goods cannot flow through the logistics chain. And we see that every day and very high dwell times at our terminals. The logistics chain is being used as a temporary storage, you could say. And that's a problem. We can only relieve that a little bit by cooperation. And I would like to give you an example that we've seen in our barge sector over the last years. Traditionally, the barge sector was a system that used milk run deliveries in our port, causing a lot of vessel calls at the terminals. Over the last years, we've seen an increase of cooperation there, and 6 corridors have been established. And in these corridors, barge operators start to cooperate together, bundle their volumes in the hinterland in order to avoid a milk run delivery and make a point-to-point delivery of high volumes to the Port of Rotterdam. This has been a successful model. It costs some money, because you can imagine that you have to bundle in the hinterland, and costs are being attracted. But we have seen in these corridors an increase of reliability, a reduction of the share of trucks in this corridor, and an increase of barge volume. And at the end, this was a system change, because barge operators cooperated together and made agreements with the port terminals to get fixed windows and securing the barge handling. So this is more or less an old-fashioned example of where cooperation does work and brings a benefit. From a bit of wider perspective, we've seen that the logistics is further developing. Existing companies are taking an end-to-end view, are taking a vertical integration strategy, but we also seen new players coming to the market. And then I think of the likes of Project 44 or 4Kites that have a huge focus on transparency, and that they provide us with insights of what they see in the data that they gather. And we believe that transparency is really the basis that will push us forward. Our vision on a digital port is that at the end, assets will communicate to assets, and that will generate loads of data. And it's our opportunity to see what we can do with the data. We have some pilots going on, or use cases, where we share our nautical information to our stakeholders, where we see if we can make a bolder talk, and in order to investigate what companies can benefit of that information that we have in our own assets. And for doing that, we create a huge ecosystem, which goes beyond our regular customers, that are the companies that lease our land or the carriers that bring goods. So we create an ecosystem and we try to do some pilots. For example, with Google, to see what benefit they can bring to our market. In order to structure this a little bit, we adopted a model, basically a 4-step model, where we said we try to achieve standardization, that's the basis. For example, by implementing the IMO standards. On top of that, we stimulate data exchange, because we believe it's important to exchange data in order to get to value. We do that by securing interoperability or offering interoperability. And at the top layer of these 4 steps, we see smart services. Many smart companies out there, also here in the event location, can bring a lot of value to the supply chain. And in our ecosystem, we want to attract them to come to Rotterdam and see what benefits they can bring to our competitive position. Well, I would like to talk you through a couple of the examples in these 4 layers. And let's start with interoperability. Our port community system, Portbase, has been grounded about 20 years ago. And by that time, we started with the ambition to digitalize all pieces of paper that we've seen flying throughout the port. Over these 20 years, Portbase developed as a kind of an ecosystem. Portbase is a true data hub at this moment, which offers a one-stop shop window to the companies that do their business in the Port of Rotterdam. Portbase has a high standard in order to safely and securely exchange the data, not only B2B, but also B2G. And we believe that we need a solid basis to enable companies to exchange their data or to exchange the data with smart service providers. And in that topic, we took the approach that we want to start as small as possible. And we've seen in the container supply chain that there are still a lot of silos, companies that keep their data, in best case share it with their supplier or the customer, but there's a role to play also for a port authority. With this basis of Portbase, we've seen that connecting this data to the data of shippers, forwarders in inland terminals and analyzing that can give some great insights. And we run a number of projects where we analyze the hinterland data, and we've seen that that can indeed generate value. So in these cases, shippers could lower their safety stock, shorten their lead times, or reducing the amount of trucks they have been using and lowering at the end cost. We've seen that this demands data exchange, but also, again, cooperation in the supply chain. And at the end, our view is that a transparent supply chain will lead to an efficient supply chain. And that's not only in day-to-day operation, we also have seen this opportunity in the orientation phase. We started with a Navigate, which is for us a portal where we wanted to show all the options via Port of Rotterdam, making it easier for the market to see how to get from A to B, but only via Port of Rotterdam. We got some pushback from the market, and they said, okay, great, guys, nice that you show us the way via Rotterdam, but actually I want to see all the options out there. So we decided to take on a challenge, and we developed Route Scanner. A Route Scanner is basically a planning system that shows you all the options to get into and out of Northwest Europe, end to end. So that also means the options via our competitors. And I can guarantee you that there's no pre-written logic in there. It's truly transparent. It's like-for-like comparison. And we believe, and of course we made the analysis, that with the service offering in Rotterdam, we'll have a good result anyway. But most important is that we make also here the step towards transparency, because that's what the market is asking for. Well, I'd like to close off my presentation with a piece of on innovation. I think drones are, to most of us, not a surprise anymore when we see them flying around. Maybe a little bit of an annoyance because of the sound they make. But in a chemical or logistics industry, that's a different ballgame. There's a safety aspect to it. And it's our ambition to become the first Dutch properly coordinated drone airspace, and we run a pilot for that. Not only because we know that it's important from a safety perspective, but also because we know that it will open up opportunities for our own operation, but also for the operation of our customers. And we know that we have to experiment with that. So that's why we're also taking that topic on board. Well, I'd like to close off with the remarks that, the future is now. We really have to act now. The opportunity is out there, but we have to do that together. So let's experiment, let's connect, as Steve said, and let's make logistics a little bit better, because I think we all need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Matthias, for your opening presentation. And I hope you've gleaned enough information there for your important questions after our next speaker. I hope you managed to catch most of that, Alexandru. And
Yes.
You've got a very attentive audience here, and we're all looking forward to what you're going to be telling us. We just hope you don't get run over by that ship behind you before you finish your presentation.
No, definitely not. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I need to acknowledge, again, TOC is the ideal event to talk about innovation and transformation. We have here all the industry leaders, industry players who are reshaping and improving our industry. I'm at the same time very happy to see TOC 2022 bringing all of us together again. And I deeply regret that I cannot be in Rotterdam today to reconnect with colleagues, with partners and friends. So today we are going to talk about industrial transformation and how technology drives change and how we can together be successful and support our customers. What it is different about industrial transformation in 2022 is that the combination of physical and digital is completely different than anything that happened before. It's increasing the speed in which markets are able to change, and it also enables new companies to come into markets that previously would have not been able to. You can study every industry to see how the combination of hardware and software, digital and physical, are being impacted by these technological and business model changes, impacted by the industrial transformation. One of the things we have learned analyzing transport and logistic transformation journey is that the competitive landscape is changing, creating many challenges and opportunities for new and existing companies within our industry. Navigating in this landscape requires focus and a clear purpose in order to maintain course, move forward, and generate customer value. This is a competitive landscape where neither mature nor startup companies are necessarily prescribed to it. New companies have a blank sheet of paper. They can disrupt. They can think with a clean slate about how they are going to meet customer needs, but they often don't have the domain knowledge of what it takes to be successful in our industry. Mature organizations often have deep balance sheets, but they need to be more agile, to build skill sets and competencies that maybe they haven't had previously in their organization. In a world where every product is connected, companies need to keep in mind two things. Number one, they need to build the capabilities to develop digital platforms, to connect and communicate with customers, and then to learn how to manage it on the ongoing basis. Companies need to listen to the conversations with customers to understand how customers are using the products and to think about how they can constantly be improving their products by partnering with customers and focus on final outcomes. Shifting from the transactional relationship to a partnership model, it is key for success. At the same time, organizations need to understand that shifting to a partnership model is not just a new type of contract. It's a mindset shift. It's built on trust and has to be a transparent and non-restrictive process. Such ambitious transformations will be observed, and the entire ecosystem will have an opinion about the change in conversations and the change in relationships between suppliers and customers. And certainly, other companies might want to be part of that model where data sharing, new digital product development, and business transformation enablement can happen openly based on a common integration platform. An example of such platform-based partnership and collaboration is our decarbonization strategy. We are determined to lead the change in our industry towards a carbon neutral future. Change demands action, and our commitments to decarbonization are firm and clear. We will deliver a 72% relative reduction in CO2 emissions by 2030 when we compare with 2008 levels. We will have net zero vessels on water by 2030, and we will target a net zero CO2 emissions from our own operations by 2040. These targets are important and necessary, and this makes them inspiring. And they are already driving our engineers and scientists, together with innovators, investors, and policymakers worldwide, to create the logistic solutions of the future. Collaboration and partnership is key in driving industrial transformation. In a world where digital and physical are combining to create massive disruption across the industry, transformation can be seen as a challenge or as an opportunity. Some companies will adapt and prosper, and some others will be on their heels. But being under pressure can actually be very motivating. In some ways, where you are under pressure to transform, you have a license to try new things, to be creative. You can look at ways in which headwinds can become tailwinds that can actually propel you forward. So, a change in technology, a change in an industry, a change in a relationship model could actually be an opportunity for a company to catapult itself and to do business in a new way. Companies that innovate both on new technologies and new business model end up becoming the winners on the long term. The three main components of Maersk digital transformation have been building an in-house technology powerhouse and establishing a way of working which is closely integrated with the business functions. Here, integration is key as we move forward. Second, acceleration in the modernization of legacy infrastructure, adopting best-in-class agile software development methodologies and working hand in hand with standardization of business processes in order to deliver digital-enabled operations and customer experiences. And last but not least, using technology to drive internal efficiencies. For example, modernization of terminals, data-driven optimization and fuel efficiencies, and data products to improve customer visibility and support decision-making processes. By integrating physical and digital world, we all have a unique opportunity to change the status quo and transform. My goal with you today was to share a few viewpoints on industrial transformation and to share ways how we can work better together to improve our industry. I hope that our integrator vision and the use of real examples from our transformation journey can give each of you new ideas for your business model. Nobody sails in calm waters these days. And it is only up to us to embrace industrial transformation, to transform and adapt, to build partnerships, and find new ways of working together. Thank you for your time and attention, and I encourage you to connect with our colleagues from APM Terminals or from Maersk, which are now present at TOC. We would love to hear from you. Enjoy the show and your time in Rotterdam, and hope to meet you soon. Stay safe.
Alexandru, thank you for a great presentation, and good to see you're still one step ahead of that ship behind you. Some really interesting things there. If we can, I'll come back in a minute to Matthias, but I mean, both you and Matthias have been talking about pretty much the same sorts of things. How do you see what you're doing and what the Port of Rotterdam are doing as integrating?
Yes, so I think it is all about how we succeed to create visibility and how we can, change a little bit the relationships with our suppliers and with our customers at the same time. Bringing together the digital and physical reality, it's absolutely important these days, where the visibility and the accessibility to data through the digital platforms have to be supported and connected to the actual physical performance of the assets. And it's only when we create that balance and that equilibrium, in a way, it is where efficiencies can be derived and customer value can be generated.
Thank you very much. Matthias, you talked about the building cooperation for data exchange, and I mean, from TOC in October and from other things said today, I think we could be forgiven for seeing that what we've managed to do is to replace physical silos with data silos, and we've still got this problem of different parts of the industry not talking to each other. I mean, but it's a big challenge, yeah? And clearly trying to build a big bang single solution isn't necessarily the right way to go, because it could be redundant by the time you get it all up and running. So what's been how have you managed to counter the size of the problem and manage to actually properly engage with the stakeholders that you haven't been engaging with before?
Yeah, well, we believe that it demands a very solid basis to bridge these silos, and that's basically what the port community system is doing in Rotterdam. Of course, every customer and supplier have one-on-one relations. That's not something that we have to interfere. But what we see with this data hub is that it's easier to bridge the silo a bit further down the supply chain, so that everyone is pulling its information from the same source. That's why we're placing our port community system as a really a central base in Rotterdam. And we work from this PCS with our current customers, such as Maersk or APM, but we also engage with the new ones out there. So we run a pilot with TradeLens, for example, and we have a couple of other of these platforms on our list, because we believe that we have to work with them to see what value they can bring to Rotterdam, and we do that by experimenting on a small scale. So this basis is something that we put in place a couple of years ago that we're utilizing now. I think the other part, and that also relates a little bit to the story of Alex, is that we see a role of optimizing, for example, parts of the logistics processes, such as the port call. And that's where, when a ship comes in, 6 or 7 service providers have to do something. In the former times, they've been calling and emailing each other, but we've seen that as an opportunity to develop with all these stakeholders in the port call a platform to exchange this data automatically, to look at the same truth at the same time. And we can only do that by partnering with, for example, Maersk, APM, but also their competitors. And our goal is to make the port call process in Rotterdam more efficient, to enable our customers to implement, for example, just-in-time arrivals, which is good for sustainability. So that's, I think, the two axes that we're using. Putting a basic in place, working together with the industry to optimize processes and generate value, such as a reduction of ship turnaround times in the port.
Okay. And what about your fascinating new product, Route Scanner? Is that something that's up and running now? I know I can sense many shippers that are here running to your stand to give it a go today.
Yeah, it's up and running today, also yesterday. So it's in there. We don't want to conquer the whole world in one day, so we took a staged approach. We started with Rotterdam. We have Northwest Europe in there right now, so all the schedules of the carriers are in there. We're working on direct API integration so that we get the schedules real time, so not from a static data source. So that's one step. The other step is to do the same at the hinterland side. That was disconnected, and with Route Scanner we bridged that gap basically. So it can be used today, and we're very happy to hear feedback on what the shippers or forwarders are seeing there.
Excellent. We look forward to some more feedback on that as things develop. Now, what about some questions from the audience? Has anybody let some? Well, it wouldn't be a TOC without a question coming from the ubiquitous John Fossey, so who's raised his hand. So let me hand the microphone to him.
Thanks, Steve. A question to Matthias. Very interested presentation, Matthias. I just want to draw a little bit on your drone strategy. How are you using the drones at the moment? What future use do you have planned for those drones? And what do you see as the main benefits for both Port of Rotterdam and your customers?
Yeah, so basically we're experimenting with drones in a couple of buckets. So one is that regulatory aspect that I talked about. We believe that in a port area, use of drones should be regulated or at least be supervised from a safety perspective, and that's non-existing at this moment. So we run a pilot there to see if our harbor master can play a role there and make sure that we can have drones in the port, but in a, well, as I said, properly coordinated way. So that's one of the buckets, and we work together with ministries, for example, to explore that. The other bucket that we see is using drones for our own operation. So in order to do, for example, inspections at assets or in the water, and that's something we explore with our harbor master department. So then it's really up to our own operation. But we're also having these discussions with our customers, see how can they use drone technology for inspecting their own assets, for example. And the third one is that we're exploring more the commercial use of drones. Not so much that we as a port authority will provide that service, but we do believe that there's an opportunity of, for example, getting samples of a ship to an inspection location by drone instead of by vessel. So we're looking actively for these use cases. We invest a little bit in these use cases to see what we can learn there. A couple of years ago we said that drones, that's not our cup of tea, but I think that's a bit too blind way of looking at it, because they will be there and they offer a lot of opportunity. But we have to explore that together with our operational department, but also with our customers, because also that can bring the port basically a step further. Thank you.
Thanks for the answer. Thank you for that question, John. Alexandru, we haven't forgotten you. We can still see you. You, in one of your slides, you showed that how you're planning to link up logistics with ocean and with ports and terminals, which is, of course, a big challenge. We've all seen at the moment the terrible disruption that ports and terminals and liner shipping is facing, with blanked sailings, people not knowing where their containers are, and a considerable amount of criticism of the ship operators and other stakeholders just not communicating what's going on. How do you see the things that you were talking about solving those sorts of issues, and what are the benefits for shippers going to be?
It is all about partnership and working all together. It is clear that these days, as I said, nobody really sails on calm waters. There are big disruptions in the market, which needs to be counterbalanced by very efficient and flexible solutions. What we have learned in the dialogue with our customers, working together with also with our suppliers, is that by coming together and trying to tackle the challenges, one at a time, thinking about how we can provide, end-to-end services, integrated solutions, which will serve the customer supply chain needs. This is the key for the future. And so far we had, I would say, many successes. Of course, there are still challenges out there, and that's why we are here and standing up for, addressing those challenges as we move forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, before we move on to the next question, how many of you here in the audience are looking forward to a cup of coffee after this session? Raise your hands if you're looking forward to a cup of coffee. I can see some trepidation here. This is really funny. At least we've established that you know how to raise your hand, so there's no excuse for not asking a question. Who's going to answer? Who's going to ask the next question? Doesn't say a lot for the standard of coffee here, I have to say. Okay, let's come back to you, Matthias, from the things that we've been talking about, and you talked about the streamlining of your barge network, and how is that? How long has that been in operation? How's it going? And in terms of your utopian vision of it, what do you expect to see in a year's time?
You mean the network of connections? Yeah. Well, I think we'll see that developing for sure. As I gave the example of the barge industry, we've seen that network developing. It means there's still also a number of small calls coming into the port of Rotterdam. But the change there is that from many small calls, it changed to a system with large calls coming in. In this sector, we've seen this change first, but we're in a pilot of more than a year now, or half a year, I would say, since October, where we have the planning of the barge handling been done by a supercomputer. So we do believe that that's the next step. The barge system is that huge, with about 10 terminals in the port, 28 operators, barge operators, coming in every day. Well, literally hundreds of ships every day. With the technologies at hand, you can have a supercomputing making this planning. But it means that all the actors in the supply chain have to give up their autonomy and let the supercomputer plan it instead of doing it themselves and optimizing their own business. So, and I think it's great that we're in this pilot now. We learn a lot. About half of the volume that we have is in there. But we do see structural flaws proven by data. And I expect that will continue, so that after the barge system, we'll have a look at the rail system, at the feeder system, maybe even at the truck system. So we use technology to improve supply chain planning. And it follows a little bit the example of the Portco at Seaside. So that won't be there tomorrow, because it's easy to speak about this, but it's a true transformation of the industry. So it takes definitely a lot of time and a lot of courage of the various supply chain partners. So in terms of connectivity, well, I think we are very well positioned. We don't have that much white spots on our wish list, to be honest. Our focus will be on increasing reliability and increasing sustainability. And that's where we work with the likes of Maersk and APM to see what kind of sustainable fuels they can get in Rotterdam, to see if they can implement just-in-time arrivals in order to not speed up to rush to a port. So that's, I think, the areas of attention for the coming years. And as Alex said, with the amount of disruptions going on, I think it will be hard work anyway to make sure that the system will keep on flowing.
Yeah, can you just give us an indication of the percentage of traffic that moves by barge, and what sort of transit times are we talking about? Because these barges are travelling a long way inland, and it's a significant part of the total supply chain in terms of total time, right?
Yeah. It's I would say about 35% of the hinterland volume is transported by barge at this moment. So depending a little bit of what angle you look at it. And then it depends, of course, per destination. So within the Netherlands, you can transport goods per barge in 1 or 2 days. Well, 1 day, I would say. If you go all the way up to the Rhine, to Switzerland, it will take a little bit longer. But what we're seeing is that this system can carry loads of volume. So it's, in fact, a very efficient way of transporting. And that's, I think, the great part of Rotterdam, is that we have all 3 modalities. So the truck, the rail, and the barge.
Great, thank you for that. I have to say, I'll share this with you, is that on my wish list is to do a trip on one of these barges and go, as an ex-seafarer, go all the way up the Rhine on it. I think it would be a fascinating, absolutely fascinating journey. Now, Alexandru, you were talking about your benchmarks for the improving your environmental emissions. I mean, we're going through a period of great change at the moment, and in terms of the fuels that we're going to be using, and there just aren't the supply levels of them that are needed to make them currently sustainable. So how do you make those sorts of decisions with the ships that you're building today, given the uncertainty we face with fuel supply for tomorrow?
Definitely, these are some of them existing challenges, some of them new challenges. Yeah, so this is a changing environment. But if we talk about our decarbonization strategy and the targets we have, we definitely have in plan and deeply searching for solutions which will actually structurally improve the way and the emission footprint for transport and logistics. I think some of them, they will be not much reliable on the way how we are actually operating today, vessels, the combustions. So that's where we are actually investing now and working, as I said, with innovators, with investor and policymakers to try reshape the logistic solutions for the future. So I yeah, go on.
Apologies. So, I mean, does this mean that you're building ships with engines where you can switch from one fuel type to another fairly easily with cost-effective modification?
Yes. So we are working in developing fuels with a higher efficiency, and that's where we are actually seeing the transformation, the radical transformation into the decarbonization agenda.
It may interest you to know that tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock we have Annika Kroon, who's the head of unit for DG Move, who's going to be talking about these issues. So
very interesting.
So there might be some useful information for you and for all of us. Now we are in running up to coffee time. You've had a bit more time to think about your questions. So what about we've got some people that have been in the industry for a long time here. I might just go and hand over the microphone and see what people have got to say. Matthias, have you got anything you'd like to say before we close the session today?
No, the only thing what would be my closing remark is, I think it's great that we can meet each other again, because it's not only for networking, but it's also inspiring to hear each other's stories. So for us, it's inspiring to hear the stories of our customers, or to hear the stories of the people out here that come from a different perspective. Time is changing, logistics is changing, and I think we need all perspectives to get the best out of it. So I would encourage everyone to network, to inspire each other, and to do the same with us. Tell us your stories, because I can believe we can make this industry better together, and we'll keep on doing that.
That's great advice, and we look forward to following that. And from your good self, Alexandru, it's a shame that you're not here in person. It would have been a pleasure to meet you. If you've got anything you'd like to add?
I would say that, again, we are passing through challenging times. The industry has to face various disruptions. It's up to us, as I said, to embrace transformation, try to adapt to the new ways, build partnerships. I think that's a very important element as we move forward. Find ways how we can work better together, and think about that physical and digital world connecting together. It's really creating a unique opportunity to challenge the status quo and transform. So thank you, everyone, and I really hope to see you soon. Till that time, please enjoy the show and enjoy the time in Rotterdam.
Alexandru, thank you, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you on some of the subjects that we've discussed today. Before we close the session in the traditional way, I'd like to tell you that 11:30, the next session is on that well-known oxymoron, market intelligence. And it's going to be covering market intelligence and volatility. You've got a great panel for that session. We've got John Fossey, without whom no TOC would be complete. Indra Vonk, from Deloitte, who was a speaker here in October. Peter Sand, Chief Shipping Analyst, who is well known to the industry. Lamia, who's the Secretary General of Freeport. And last but not least, of course, the highly experienced and knowledgeable Eleanor Hadland, who's Senior Analyst, Ports and Terminals at Drury. So I hope that you'll now join me in thanking TOC, Rotterdam as our sponsors, and Matthias and Alexandru for kicking us off with excellent presentations this morning.